What did they think about you performing secular music?
Well, not much. I was singing the devil's music, of course. But old man Phineas, who was the band leader, he had kind of like a Count Basie type band, big band. And he said, well, if he could work on Friday nights and Saturdays, and maybe for the fashion show on Sunday, I'll make sure we take good care of him and bring him back and forth. And so she said, as long as you have him on Sunday morning for church service, it's fine. So he had his kids also working there, Phineas Jr. and Calvin and all that. So he was like a surrogate father that had the big band. So that's how I got really involved professionally into it.
And made sure you didn't get into too much trouble.
Oh, no. I was too young to go out into the audiences because they sold liquor and stuff in the club. So I would sit backstage, the band would play for 30 minutes, and then they'd bring me on for 15, and then they'd give me a Coke, and I'd go backstage and sit for the next set. But it was fun, and I learned a lot. It was like going to university, during that time, really.
And I guess growing up in Memphis in the 50s, there was some amazing music happening around you. What were you listening to? Who were your influences?
My influences back then, of course, I was also singing with a Teen Town group at WDIA on Saturday, which is like a choral group of young kids. And out of that group came Carla Thomas, Marvell Thomas, Isaac Hayes. So we were all into that Teen Town singers. And B.B. King had I guess it was a commercial type show. He would do 2 or 3 songs and then sing about Pepticon, which was a drink that people drank to get energy and stuff. So B.B. was one of my influences. Bobby Bland, Junior Parker, and people like that, and of course Sam Cooke. I was, as a very young kid, about 6 or 7, I really got into the gospel stylings of Sam and the Soul Stirrers. So.
And he also started out with gospel and switched to secular,
right.
Which there was some backlash among his fans about that.
Oh yeah. He suffered a little bit about that. Because he did change from singing gospel to secular music, and for a minute there until You Send Me came out, because he put a couple songs out before then as Dale Cook, and nobody could mistake his voice, so they all knew it was Sam. And he did suffer quite a backlash from that.
Now, even though you were performing regularly while you were still a teenager and then having some success, you were still not totally sure that you wanted to go into music as a career?
I was not really into becoming a musician professionally. Actually, my mom wanted me to become a doctor. She was just sure I'd become the first doctor in the family. So for the formative years, I was studying, and taking all the classes that would pertain to becoming a doctor. And then, of course, after winning the contest and seeing how the other half lived, I'm going, okay, that's not a bad lifestyle. So I got more and more into it, and working with old man Phineas on the weekends kind of capped it off.
Now, do you remember any particular moment or gig where you realized, like, okay, this is for me, this is going to be my career, no more medical school?
Yeah, absolutely. My dad took me to, Sam came to town after he had You Send Me out, and he was on one of those package tours, we called them in those days, about 3 or 4 acts. And we went to see Sam and Solomon Burke and I think D. Clark or somebody and the Impressions. And I sat there, and Sam had such me being a fan already, he had such a command of the stage and the people right in the palm of his hands. that was the defining moment for me that, well, this is what I want to do. And so from that moment on, I was like a sponge. I soaked up everything that was told to me, and from the musicians on, and they were always hard on the young guys. You know, it's like nobody else could talk about you. And if you didn't sing the right note, or couldn't sing the right phrasing, tempo, backstage in the dressing room, can't you sing? Why don't you do it like that? And I went through hours and hours of rehearsal, but with some great musicians like Hank Crawford and people like that were younger, but they were like in their 20s, but they were in the band. And so all of these guys became just, they were jazz musicians as well as blues players. So it was just a rewarding experience to get that knowledge from all of these guys, and like I said, I soaked it up like a sponge.
Right. I'm sure that influenced your writing. I mean, you did things like putting strings on a soul record later on.
Oh yeah, actually one of my records was the first soul record for Stax that we put strings on, and we called in the Memphis Symphony Players, which was kind of strange, you know, because they didn't know what to expect. Nobody had done that before. But Booker and I had the idea of, rather than, because it was such a sensitive ballad, we had the idea, rather than just put all of the overlay of horns and stuff on, which was kind of hard, we'd try strings. So it worked out great, and that song, we did, I think, 3 songs in that session, and I Forgot to Be Your Lover was one of the songs.
Actually, going back to your first record before Stax was for the Meteor label.
Right. Oh, that's the beginning, very beginning.
That was the Bahari brothers, who are actually from New Orleans, on the Meteor label.
Yeah.
And did Rufus Thomas play on that with you, or
his band, right. The Bearcats, yeah. I was 14 at the time, and I got signed to a record label called Meteor, which was owned by Les Behary, one of the Behary brothers. And I was always writing, even at a young age. That was an escape for me. It was like therapy, I guess. I would write poems and stuff like that. So I wrote this song called Alone on a Rainy Night, and actually I had 4 songs. So they wanted to record them on me. So Rufus Thomas, who was like another older gentleman that I knew as both DJ and he was a dancer back then, and a comedian, and also a disc jockey. So his band played on the recording with the Bearcats.
Just another question. I think at about the same time, did you record vocals on a Carl Thomas record?
I did. I formed a group to do backup work, and it was called the Del Rios. And we worked the club scene, and I would do a solo thing one set, and I'd bring the group up, because Hank Bell and the Midnighters and the Flamingos and all those groups were popular then. So, and we'd do the second set with the group. And they called us in. This is when I first became, to Stax, was that they called us in to do backup on a Carl Thomas record, which was Gee Whiz. So the Del Rios was the backup group on Gee Whiz behind Carl Thomas.
Now, I guess starting with Stax, because you were one of the very first Stax artists, even when it was not even Stax.
Yeah, I was the first single male artist that they signed. They had the Marquis with Last Night, of course, and then they had Rufus and Carla as a duo. And I was the first male single act that they signed with, Shore.